Good day, everybody. This is Professor Frank van Vliet from the University of Baltimore, and I'm honored to be here today to talk a little bit about fear and how you can leverage fear and the fear of failure for growing and scaling your business. So let's start off with an interesting little tidbit of information. According to Forbes magazine, 8 out of 10 businesses will fail. So now you got your fear level up a notch, right? Well, here's why. Reason number one, really not in touch with what the customers, through deep dialogue. You haven't spoken to the customer and really understood what their needs are. Number two, there's really no differentiation in the market for your product or service. You think you have got features that may be benefits, but you haven't done enough research yet to really cement that. Number three, failure to communicate what your value proposition is. That kind of goes back to what differentiates you, what makes you special in a clear, concise, and compelling fashion. What makes your features benefits for your target audience. Number four, leadership at the top. Often startup companies start all buddy-buddy. You've got 2 or 3 partners, and dysfunction between the founders of the organization can be problematic as you start growing. So those are things that can come back to haunt you. And the fifth one is inability to nail a profitable business model with proven revenue streams. In other words, you haven't really thought about how you're going to make money. All right. So it's only natural to be cautious. And we're cautious in life, right? And you want to avoid risks, but fear of failure may actually be ruining your business. What it does to you is it forces you to play really safe. It also is blocking you from an abundant path of growth and meeting what your goals were. Number three, it's limiting your chances to scale your business, aka growth, right? And it's all about growth. It's capping your potential to earn more money. And finally, it's creating an unhealthy force that's not just impacting your business, but your everyday life, every area of your life, right? This fear becomes a cloud hanging over your head. So Albert Einstein said, failure is success in progress. And I like that. Failure is success in progress. So there's a great picture. We've all, as kids, gotten a bicycle, and I'm sure we've fallen off and scraped our knees. But I'm going to share a little personal story. Today, I'm an avid road cyclist. But when I was 6 years old, my father bought me a bicycle. And my father was kind of interesting in this regard. There was no such thing as get a little bike and grow into it. No, here's a 26-inch full adult bike. Good luck with that. No training wheels, no lessons. You need to figure it out. So I got it in May, and I spent most of that summer in Band-Aids and creams and sobs trying to heal all the bruises and scrapes on my body. But I was persistent, like an entrepreneur. I got up, got back on that bicycle, and getting on it was half the battle, and stopping was the other challenge, right? How I get off it without falling off. So I had to learn how to do that, and perseverance paid off. By the end of the summer, I was an avid cyclist. Well, entrepreneurship is exactly the same as riding a bicycle. We're going to scrape our knees along the way. And failure is a part of life. And some very famous people have failed numerous times. Bill Gates, one of his very first products, the founder of Microsoft, right, had something called Trafodata. The failure was a computerized machine for processing paper tapes from counting traffic, for traffic counts. The second one here is the founder of Sony, Akira Morita. He failed at making rice cookers, and he sold less than 100 units, and these things were burning the rice and just a horrible failure, right? But eventually became on to grow the Sony Corporation. My favorite one, Colonel Saunders. Over 1,000 rejections with his original recipe. And he wasn't trying to open restaurants. He was trying to get people, other restaurants, to use his recipe in their cooking process. Can you imagine the resilience to be rejected over 1,000 times before somebody picked up his secret formula and used it? Henry Ford, another famous one. So we all know the Ford Motor Company, very successful organization, but he had 2 car company failures before that. The first one was in 1901 the Detroit Automobile Company, and went out of business because of customer complaints and very high prices. And the second one, right afterwards, was the Henry Ford Company, founded a year later. Couldn't get any sales volume. So he learned from those lessons, building the Model T, and learned about mass production and interchangeability of parts to differentiate him from the other players in the marketplaces. So he learned his failure, used his failures to leverage growth on his own part. So we need to view failure potential as an opportunity. So the very first thing we need to be is be prepared. So embrace the fact that failure can happen at any moment, right? Have business continuity plans, in case something goes wrong. There's still not going to be any guarantees. Think about it. How many businesses didn't plan for COVID-19 a year ago, right? And some went the way of the dodo bird. Some figured out how to recreate themselves and be successful and use that as an opportunity for business growth. So life happens, business events happen, and we have to be prepared to accept them and be calm and make the changes to impact our business. Failure's not at the end of the world. We can adopt. The worst thing that could possibly happen is you have to declare bankruptcy, close your business, get a job somewhere while you regroup in the back room and start again. It's not the end of the world. So don't be afraid of it. Don't let fear rule you. Unchecked fear can play crippling mind games to you, right? In every aspect of your life. Avoid rationalizing the fear. I got to be afraid because I don't have any cash flow. Yeah, not having cash flow is a bad thing, but don't let it penalize you. Seize opportunities and don't allow fear to dictate your life. Number 3, don't dwell on the mistakes. They're going to happen. Mistakes are going to happen. When you fall off the horse, just get back on. Or in my case, when you fall off your bicycle, get back on, right? Do take time to figure out why the mistakes occurred. Could be poor direction. Maybe it's your employees, you didn't give them the proper training or operating instructions to run that part of the business. So be due diligent and peel the onion back to figure out what went wrong. Learn and move on and stay positive. Tip number 4 is stay positive all the time. That's going to be difficult. You have customers that may be disappointed in you or whatever. You have to keep a stiff upper lip, as the British would say. So always look for a silver lining in every situation. Say no to negativity. Sensing a theme here, right? As Zig Ziglar said, great motivational speaker, it's your attitude more than your aptitude that will determine your altitude. So, to paraphrase, attitude equals altitude, right? Positive attitude equals altitude. So take responsibility. Tip number 5, if something goes wrong, you own it. Admit your mistakes, embrace them, don't blame them on others, and then find solutions to move on. Fear and failure as an entrepreneur. Please remember that your failures, you see them more than anyone else does, right? You're looking in the mirror and say, oh my gosh, I failed this. But your peers around you probably don't see it the same way you do. Failing in business does not make you individually a failure. Pull your socks up and get back into the game. Mitigate the fear of failing with patience. I like this because we're on a cell phone. How many of us have had our cell phones, the batteries going down, we get all panicky because we're going to lose our call? Call again. Get the charger. Keep going. Okay. So how do you ensure that you're not going to fail? How do we avoid that? Well, I'd like to tell you that I got a magic bullet for you, but you really can't. However, there's a few things you can do to help minimize it. All right, and let's talk about those. So the first thing, whatever your product or service concept is, research your idea very thoroughly. Spend some time doing due diligence. And make sure that it's a good business opportunity. Look realistically at what the revenue potential is. A lot of companies have a brilliant idea, but just because it's a good idea doesn't mean they can make any money doing it, right? So really look to see if you're going to get paid with this idea. Scalability of the business opportunity. It's great that you're selling cookies in downtown Baltimore, but can this become an international cookie company? Is this recipe unique enough that can take you to the next dimension? So always start dreaming about where you can take the business. Bounce your ideas off of family and friends, but do so with caution. Your family may have, particularly your parents, may want to tell you to go get a job. Never mind launching this entrepreneurial idea, go get a real job, right? So you got to be a little cautious with what they tell you. And they may be less likely to tell you that your baby's ugly in the same breath, right? If your product or service really is horrible, they may not be so forthcoming. So take that with a grain of salt, but do listen to them. Do listen to them. Focus groups are very good, where you bring in groups of people to bounce your ideas off. These could be people that you know, people you don't know from the outside. Again, focus groups can be very good, but sometimes they're not as forthright in providing information as you like, because maybe you're buying them lunch or it's an event and they feel a little bit obligated to be nice. So even better is random sampling groups, where you randomly pull people together and start bouncing your ideas off them. They have nothing invested in it. You're not invested in those individuals, and they're more likely to be more forthright with giving you real opinions. And of course, potential users are great. Future customers, take your product or service to them and bounce it off them. And really, that's a great place to start testing price, right? Will you pay $1,000 for this stick of gum? Probably not, right? But at some point, you've got to get a feel of what the market will bear for whatever your goods or services are, again, compared to what other products are in the market doing the same thing. So remember this. Most people do not listen with the intent to understand, that they listen with the intent to reply. So as an entrepreneur, I always like to go back to some very basic things. If we look at us as human beings, we have 2 nostrils, right? So we can sense, smell twice as efficiently as speaking. We have 1 mouth, 2 ears, 2 eyes. So our external senses to bring information in are twice as many orifices, if you will, as for speaking. So which means we need to listen twice as much as we speak. We need to view our surroundings twice as much as we speak. So use your senses. Listen to what people are saying and interpret that data effectively before you respond orally. Think big. This is very difficult sometimes for entrepreneurs, particularly as you're just getting started, you're stretching your dollars and cents, but you want to make sure you're ready and prepared for growth. Weaknesses can be exposed as the business grows. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but you got to be prepared. You're going to find out that you're missing resources, or that you're going to have to need training in other areas of the business that you may not have experienced before. All good, but as you start growing, you'll find your wrinkles in your recipe. Think carefully about how scaling up and growing the business will affect your company. So you got to plan ahead. Just because I can sell 100 pencils a month in my current role, automatically being able to sell 10,000 pencils a month is going to require a lot of change to my business model in order to execute that. You got to start planning for it and thinking about it. So that could make you afraid, but don't let it make you afraid. You need to plan. Planning will get you more close to where you want to be than just being afraid. And finally, Steve Jobs said, people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do, right? Welcome entrepreneurs, right? Whatever idea you've got, whatever service concept you're thinking about, you could be the next Steve Jobs. You just don't know it yet. Okay. Number 4, evaluate and learn from current and potential competitors. So think about how they've done things. What made them successful? Why are they good at what they do? And in the same breath, where are their weaknesses? What do they not do well? Those are areas that you can leverage. How have they succeeded, right? What made them special? How many employees do they have? And that's an interesting litmus test, just to kind of see how big they are. It tells you kind of what their production capabilities are. And that's pretty easy to figure out for most organizations. And if it's a manufacturing facility, drive past the manufacturing facility and count cars. That'll give you an idea of how many people are working there. Where are they selling and how? Who are their targeted customers? Are you going to compete directly with them, or are you going to discover a unique niche of different type of customers so you stay off the radar screen, right? So you think about Kevin Plank, who launched Under Armour. If he had tried to sell his original shirts directly against Adidas and Puma and Nike, he would have been crushed right out of the gate. But he found a unique customer base, i.e. High schools and colleges that were not well served by the big players. They were all basically going after the NFL and hockey, the professional hockey leagues, etc. So they found a little niche that was not well treated by the big players, and that's where they got traction. And eventually were able to go head to head once they had some resources. So find a niche that's unique, that's not being well served, and target that first. You can't be everything to everybody right out of the gate. Understand their business and model and learn lessons from what they're doing. So look for potential threats of substitutes. So I got a picture here of 3 drills. All of these are going to make holes of some shape, size, or configuration. The first one on the left is the one your grandfather probably has in his toolbox, a mechanical drill you turn by hand. The one on the far right is the one your dad probably had, which is an electric drill, plugs into 120 volts. And the one in the middle is the one you'd like to have today. It's a battery-operated drill. All 3 of these devices certainly make holes. But you know what? There's indirect competitors to this that you may not even think about. So if you're trying to hang a picture in drywall, a screwdriver and a hammer might be sufficient in making a hole in the drywall. You don't even need to take a drill out. That's an indirect competitor. I can put the wall plug in, put my screw in, and hang my picture on the wall. Never took the drill out of the tool case. So although these 3 that I've shown here are direct competitors with different price points, with different features, you also have to think about the other items that could be competitors and could be used as substitutes, particularly if your product is priced at a point where it's not competitive to the marketplace. Now, here's an example of breakfast sandwiches. We can get a breakfast sandwich in a number of different places: McDonald's, Starbucks, Burger King, Tim Hortons if you're up north. But then we can buy a Jimmy Dean's croissant out of the grocery store. We can make our own sandwich. All of those are competitors. Some of them are direct, some of them are indirect, depending where you are, if you're opening up a sandwich business. But there's others. Wawa could be a competitor, right? Gas stations and local variety stores could also be direct competitors, and some of them are indirect competitors. You need to understand that, and you need to understand what their price points are against your product or service. Build a great team of employees. It's pretty important. As you're starting out, it's probably just you, yourself, and I. But as you scale, you're going to need to add staff. That can be a little bit expensive, but so make sure that they embrace your corporate mission and vision. The why. Why do you exist? That needs to get translated to your team. People are not going to work for you for the paycheck. Well, they could. But what you want them to work for is for the passion that you have in the business. The same passion you do, you want them to emulate that in their everyday experiences as well. Create a culture and environment where people want to excel. Again, if they understand the why and they live and breathe the why, that's easy. And finally, business values need to be clearly embraced and followed by all. Starts at the top, right? Starts with you, the owner of the organization. Okay. Access outside expertise when required. I've got here, recruiting may not always be cost effective or financially prudent. Absolutely, right? Especially when you're starting off. You don't have a lot of resources. Network. Find people that might want to volunteer or might want to take stock options in your business as you're getting started, that have expertise in an area that you yourself don't have. So for me as an entrepreneur, I'm not a strong accountant. I've always had an accountant on the back burner that I could work with as needed, and also legal. I needed legal help on occasion. So know when to delegate. You're not going to be an expert in every area of the business. Know when you need help. And you need to focus on the big picture. Ask yourself if you have what it takes to grow the business as a leader. And if you think about it, there may become a point as your business gets to a certain size where, as the old Peter principle says, you've reached your level of incompetency, and that's okay. You may want to bring somebody else in to run your business at some point. That's not failure. That's acknowledging that you've reached your level of capability, and that's okay. So there may be a point where passing the baton, the leadership of the organization, is the right move for your business, right? Okay. Never compromise on quality or consistency. Whatever your standards are, ensure that you have the right processes, the right culture, and you bring the right people into your organization to live and breathe the same mission and vision as I said earlier on. That's so important. Okay. Identify your barriers to growth. As you're starting to grow, what strengths do you have? What weaknesses do you have? Do you have the appropriate leadership skills? How about funding? Cash is always a problem. Cash flow. Cash is king, right? You got to keep track of your cash flow, and location. Those continue to be four key important areas for any business to grow. Tip number 10 is to predict the future. Stay on top of finances. Cash is king, cash is king, cash is king, cash is king, right? Cash flow. You got to make sure you got your money coming in every single month, but don't be looking at it just on a monthly basis. You need to be checking it literally every day. There's hundreds of opportunities to correct the ship if you keep very close tabs on your cash flow. Cash is king. Did I mention that? Okay. So one of the greatest discoveries a man makes, one of his great surprises, is to find he can do what he was afraid he couldn't do. Henry Ford. Right? Two big failures before the third one became a success. Man knows what he's talking about. So this is kind of the litmus test for business, right? Try, fail, try, fail, try, success, right? So you may scrape your knees multiple times as you're launching the business. You may have identified the wrong potential customer. You may find a different customer is going to be more applicable. You're going to fail, and failure is not necessarily a bad thing. Don't be afraid of it. Use it to learn from it. So the bottom line here is you need to think big. Think about growth. Think about scalability. Think about reaching the stars for your business idea. Be bold, all right? Be bold. Don't be timid. Be bold. And embrace failure. Don't use it as a learning lesson. Use it as a learning lesson. All right. So at this point, are there any questions? I'm available. You can email me or call me on my cell phone. I'll be happy to chat with you. I appreciate your time today, and I wish you all the best on your entrepreneurial journey. Have a great day. Take care.